In December 1900, the Flannan Isles, a remote group of rocky islands off the coast of Scotland, became the center of one of history's strangest mysteries. A ship named the Arctur was passing by and noticed that the great lighthouse, which always shone brightly to guide sailors, was completely dark. This was unusual and dangerous because without the light, ships could crash against the rocks. When the ship reached the port, the captain reported the problem, and the authorities quickly sent another vessel, the Hesperus, to investigate. When the Hesperus finally arrived at the Flannan Isles on December 26th, the sea was rough and the wind howled fiercely. The crew expected to be greeted by the three lighthouse keepers, but strangely, no one appeared on the shore. The relief crew blew the ship's whistle and fired a flare into the sky, but still no men came out to welcome them. The lighthouse, tall and silent, stood like a watchful ghost. When the relief crew from the Hesperus finally landed on the rocky shore, they hurried toward the lighthouse. Everything felt strangely silent, with only the waves crashing and the wind whistling around the cliffs. The men climbed the steep path and reached the entrance. The front gate of the lighthouse was closed, but not locked. Inside, everything looked neat and in order. The beds were made, the kitchen table was set as if the keepers had just eaten a meal, and a clock on the wall had stopped ticking. Only one chair was overturned, lying strangely on the floor. But the most shocking discovery was this. The three keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur, were nowhere to be found. Their oilskins and boots, which they would normally wear outside in such harsh weather, were missing too. It was as if they had suddenly vanished into thin air. The investigation continued inside the lighthouse. One of the crew members opened the logbook, where the keepers usually recorded daily events. The entries were ordinary at first, notes about the weather, supplies, and their routine duties. But soon, the writings turned strange. One entry described a powerful storm with howling winds and enormous waves crashing against the island, even though no other nearby ships had reported such a storm. Another entry mentioned that one of the keepers, Donald MacArthur, had been crying, something unusual for such a strong and experienced man. The last log entry was the most mysterious. It spoke of the storm ending, the sea calming, and all is well. Yet the date of this final entry was several days before the Hesperus had even arrived. After that, nothing, no further records. The relief crew searched every corner of the lighthouse and the island, hoping to find a clue. On the western landing, where the men usually worked with ropes and equipment, they found something disturbing. Iron railings had been bent and twisted by the force of the sea. Heavy rocks had been moved from their places as if struck by massive waves. A box of ropes and tools was missing, swept away or carried off. Most puzzling of all, one of the ropes was still hanging down the cliff, torn and frayed, leading straight into the sea. It looked as if the keepers had rushed outside during a storm to secure the equipment, but never returned. Some investigators believe that one man had gone down the cliff, another had tried to help, and then all three were swept away by a sudden giant wave. But others argued, why would all three leave the safety of the lighthouse together, especially during such dangerous weather? The mystery only deepened. After days of searching, the Hesperus crew and investigators admitted that the three lighthouse keepers had vanished without leaving a single clear trace. The official report described the scene as strange, unusual, and deeply alarming. But the question remained. What really happened on the lonely cliffs of the Flannan Isles? Over time, many theories arose. Some believed that the men had been swept away by a single monstrous wave, larger than anything recorded. Others suggested that fierce winds had dragged them off the cliffs while they were trying to secure the ropes and equipment. But not everyone was satisfied with these natural explanations. Stranger ideas began to spread. Locals whispered that the island was cursed, haunted by spirits of ancient sailors who had died on those very rocks. Some spoke of ghostly figures seen wandering the cliffs at night and claimed that the three keepers had been taken by supernatural forces. There were even darker theories. Some suggested a fight among the men. Perhaps an argument had turned violent, leading to one or more deaths, and the survivors disposing of the bodies before being lost themselves. Yet inside the lighthouse, no blood or signs of violence were ever found. The most unsettling thought was silence itself. The storm, the missing men, the stopped clock, the abandoned meal, all of it painted a picture of sudden disappearance, as if the men had simply walked into thin air. And with each retelling, the mystery of the Flannan Isles grew more chilling. Despite countless investigations, the fate of the three lighthouse keepers of Flannan Isle was never truly uncovered. The island stood silent, battered by storms, with only the empty lighthouse as a witness to what had happened. Over the years, more people visited the place, searching for answers, but each time they left with only more questions. Sailors passing by the island claimed that they sometimes saw strange lights moving inside the abandoned lighthouse, even when no one was stationed there. Others swore they heard voices carried by the wind, shouts, cries for help, and eerie laughter that echoed across the cliffs. Locals told stories of seeing shadowy figures standing on the very edge of the rocks at night. Some said they were the spirits of the missing men, doomed to wander forever, guarding a lighthouse that no longer needed them. Fishermen avoided sailing too close, fearing the curse of the phantom keepers. Even historians and scientists who studied the case admitted that no single theory could explain everything. How could experienced men simply vanish without a struggle? Why would all three leave the safety of the lighthouse at the same time? And what about the strange log entries, the storm that no one else saw, the crying of a grown man, the final line, "All is well"? Those words seemed to mock the truth, as if written by someone who already knew what was about to happen. Over a century later, the Flannan Isles mystery remains unsolved. Some believe in giant waves, others in madness, and some in the supernatural. But no matter which theory you choose, one chilling fact cannot be denied. 3 men disappeared from a secure lighthouse on a lonely island without a trace. And perhaps the most terrifying thought is this: whatever took them, whether storm, sea, or something beyond human understanding, still lingers there. To this day, when storms rage over the Flannan Isles, sailors say you can hear voices calling through the wind and see ghostly figures moving in the shadows of the cliffs. The lighthouse still stands, tall and silent, its light shining once again. But to those who know the story, it is not a beacon of safety. It is a monument to a mystery that will never die. And so, the Flannan Isle Lighthouse stands to this day, a silent monument on a lonely rock in the Atlantic Ocean. 3 men went missing, and not a single trace was ever found. Perhaps they were swallowed by the sea, perhaps by madness, or perhaps by something we may never understand. When storms roar across the cliffs and the winds scream through the lighthouse walls, some say you can still hear the voices of the keepers calling out from the darkness. Maybe they are still there, trapped between our world and another, forever guarding a light that can never guide them home. The truth remains lost to time, and the mystery of Flannan Isle will haunt the world forever. If you enjoyed this chilling tale and want to hear more mysteries, dark histories, and terrifying stories from around the world, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because the next mystery might be even darker than this one.